LeBryan Nash, born June 30th, 1992. In life, expectations exist in all walks, but usually when they are not met, all parties can either stay and try again or move on from one another, and all is well that ends settled. But in sports, especially in the days of media being accessed to all around the world, failing to meet expectations can become a person's legacy. Expectations are also overly scrutinized and judged with no real middle ground that furthers a career. You either met them or you didn't, and today's feature, many would say, falls under the latter. With a name the combination of three of the best players at their positions in NBA history, LeBron, Kobe Bryant, and Steve Nash, expectations are all that can be expected. As a high school player, Nash looked like meeting them would be inevitable, and dominating them would only be a question of if he wanted to or not. Either way, future high draft pick and NBA player was written all over his name, and then all of a sudden, it's like pens lost ink, keyboard keys grew stuck, and Nash disappeared from all major sports talk about his insane potential. Something he admits to feeling while it was happening and being humbled hearing his name no longer. This was after his freshman year, where he, like many of the top 10 players in the 2011 class, were expected to be one and done, and 80% of them were. Nash joined Adonis Thomas as the only from the top 10 in that class that didn't make the NBA. He said years later that he thought he could easily just step on the court going into college and dominate, and in honesty, he should have. He was great size for a wing player, was physically stronger than his peers since his freshman year in high school, athletic, competitive, and he was headed to a school in Oklahoma State that needed a star player to enter their program, missing the tournament the year prior. Due to team injury his freshman year, he saw much more minutes than even expected, an opportunity to cash in as a one and done, off to make millions in the league. But after he didn't make any draft boards the summer after he was named Freshman of the Year, he decided to come back to school, and the clock started ticking on his potential, as it always does when expected one and dones decides to return to school. The biggest question, why couldn't you leave? Any other freshman averaging 13 points and 5 boards, winning the conference award for the top freshman, would be excited for a great career to come. For Nash, it was a disappointment, compounded by 2 more years of mediocre play and 4 before ultimately going undrafted and disappearing completely from NBA consideration. He was supposed to be a star in the league, but were expectations too much? What happened? Let's talk about it. Salute to Not Dalo for this request. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. LeBryan Nash is a 6'7" small forward from Dallas, Texas that came in as a freshman physically ready to play high-level varsity to say the least. He was quick for his size, played multiple positions, and athletic enough to make it look good when he dunked on defenders or on the fast break. For Lincoln, he played well enough to earn a McDonald's All-American Game invite and top 10 ranking in the country at 8th. Some services had him as high as 6th. It's there expectations began, from calling him the next LeBron to Larry Johnson or simply the next big thing. He had the creative name and opportunity along with hype to do so. All was needed was a dominating freshman year, and Nash would have been off to the NBA as a lottery pick. He shocked everyone when he stayed all 4 years and still went undrafted. Why? Stunt number 1, a poor shooter. I remember a while back, maybe around the time Draymond Green was receiving lots of criticism for shooting like a book bag was on his back, and the slump he was going through at the time, and couldn't understand why an NBA player wouldn't be a good shooter. All you do is work out, and pretty much 90% of it involves shooting after you've completed the move in the drill. In Division I colleges, you have ball boys that'll chase rebounds for you, or shooting machines, and a whole practice facility, and still you can have guys who play positions of deep shooting have shooting issues. A deep shooting issue in college is made even less encouraging when you understand the college 3 is considerably less distance than the NBA. Poor college shooters don't usually get to the NBA and be great, and coming out of Oklahoma State, that was the biggest knock on LeBryan Nash's game. It all starts in mechanics, and Nash had this two-wrist shot that he never became comfortable with. In high school, mainly because he didn't need to, and in college, it showed he was still raw in that area. He shot 20% from three over his college career, usually afraid to even take them at points, opting to step in and take the long two instead. As a senior, he shot a career-low 10% from the three, attempting barely one a game. Everyone around 2012 and beyond were looking for the next Steph Curry, or at least LeBron James in three-point shooting adequacy, and Nash wasn't either of those. Seeing him play 4 years in college was enough time for anyone to see his potential, but with those numbers, teams weren't encouraged his shooting could improve significantly enough to be the caliber player many thought he'd develop into. Stunt number 2, not having elite skills. Shooting is one thing, and like I said, I don't understand what guys are working on being in the gym as much as they are to still be poor shooters, but more than his shooting that left much to be desired, Nash didn't have any one skill that made him an elite prospect. Even physically, he stopped growing at 6'7", when in honesty, he should be like 6'10", and played the power forward position because that's what I truly see him as. A much undersized power forward who couldn't create for himself without straight line drives where he'd hit, run through, and intimidate opponents on amateur levels. His ball handling was not the best either, as he struggled his first 3 years creating his own shots that's not 2 feet away from the paint. Without deep shooting to keep defenders from taking the easy way and going under screens or playing him from the foul line daring him to shoot, he at least needed creative and effective ball handling skills that could get him to a spot he could flourish, and he never did develop that either, showing in him being poor at protecting the ball, averaging much more turnovers than assists. In his senior year, he averaged a team-high 3.2 a game. Even for point guards, that's a high number. The next guy on his team at 1.9 a game. He averaged 17 points for a team that went 18-14 and needed him to carry much the scoring role, yet it still only amounted to 17 a game. Rebounding was also less than expected for the size and athleticism he had. In 4 years, the most he averaged was 5.7 a game, and that's as a senior. He could dunk, force his way to the basket using his strength, and finish around the rim if need be, but he never was really a threat at any one thing on the floor, and in college, exposed as someone that didn't quite have the necessary elite skills for the NBA. He made up for 3 mediocre college seasons with what many expected him to come in and produce in his senior year, but the NBA requires a little more, and Nash just didn't display he had it. Stunt number 3, capped off. In basketball, it's not unusual to see a player simply cap off in his development and not see his potential met. Nash reminds me a lot of Mikey Williams today, where he had insane potential when he was younger and far more developed physically than his peers, but when they caught up to him, he was nowhere close in skill and ability to get better over time. Players go undrafted all the time in the NBA and still make NBA teams that very next season, and even go on to have outstanding NBA careers and sign huge contracts. But to do that, the player has to continue developing, and Nash kinda just stayed a player that didn't shoot well the further out he ventured and didn't improve on creating for himself, much less for others. To be waived by a D-League team says a lot, which he was in 2017, spending just 4 months with the Vipers. He never made it back to NBA consideration, mainly because the skills necessary to play in the league never continued to develop. All in all, LeBryan Nash had opportunity. That's more than what you need to fulfill the expectations of at least making the NBA. The kind of chance he had, not many get, but for these reasons, maybe the expectations were too much. Salute, much respect. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.